Okay, ready?
Yeah.
You always start.
Oh, what do I say? Hey guys. Hey guys, still perfecting that.
Still hey guys. It's fine.
Still hey guys. This is Laurie and
Elle.
And this is the Cynical Therapist. Woo. This is episode 4.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
We might get good at this. I don't know. I feel like, okay, this might be a thing now. Definitely different.
I'm like wondering if we're close enough to the mics, but I don't, whatever. I mean...
Well, my voice is so deep, it just echoes off the wall, so I'll go right back into the microphone. That is the one thing let's just broach the topic of authenticity, because that's today's topic. And it's kind of a loaded question, sort of. How authentic are you, and how authentic should you be?
That is a loaded question. I know when we were talking about what topic should we do, I was like, I think we talked about vulnerability and stuff like that, and then we came upon authenticity and what that means.
I think in order to be vulnerable, one must even think about being authentic, because how can you be vulnerable without being authentic? How do you even qualify authenticity without being vulnerable? Because being authentic is also very vulnerable.
Let's define authenticity, not like Webster's dictionary definition, but what does it mean to you?
To me, it's being completely connected to everything that makes me fallible as a human being. How's that?
Happen again.
It's being able to represent all parts of me, especially the imperfect parts, and kind of celebrate the imperfect parts of me. That's what I think it is. What I value in others authentically is kind of the silly, imperfect part of other people. But as a therapist, I think I value the broken.
Sure.
And I kind of find broken and imperfect people more interesting and more fascinating and more personable. And I've always said, I don't trust you unless you've been poor, and I don't trust you unless you've kind of failed a couple of times. It doesn't make sense for somebody to kind of appear in my life as a perfect person and for me to celebrate them.
Sure.
I don't know if I've ever met any perfect people.
And I wonder how they know, how you would know. I kind of thought about it from my just own experience with what does that mean to be authentic. And I think, for a long time, and I don't know if it was my teenage angst that just went into my 20s for a little bit there, but, that it definitely, being authentic definitely means being kind and being gentle with everybody. I think that...
Yourself included.
Which I think is the hardest thing to do. Indeed. But I think when I think about that and people who... I'm being real, right? I'm being real, or I'm being this is just who I am. Right. And people can't, but I think being authentic means being able to take a step back and figure out, okay, what is a difference? What is the difference between being authentic and being obnoxious?
Totally. The spectrum, right? Yeah. This is just who I am, and I make no apologies for it. It's not necessarily authentic if it's kind of positioned to hurt. Well, these are just my opinions, so suck it, is really different than, you know what, I want to connect and kind of, I don't know, create safe space with somebody. And I'm not going to create a safe space with somebody unless they're authentic. Yeah. Or trying to be, kind of stabbing at it. Because, as well as I know, people come into therapy and the first couple sessions, they're pretending to be more high functioning. Sometimes they come in, just falling apart. And that's oh my gosh, thank goodness you're here, right? But some people come in, especially couples, and they're positioning themselves to be the hero, or they're positioning themselves to be the one who's trying to be the voice of reason, but this other person's just not listening. And then their partner comes in and they're trying to be the voice of reason, and nobody's just listening. And you're wait a minute, this same situation came up and both of you are the hero. What is going on here? Are you trying to impress your therapist? Sure.
That's the hardest part of being authentic, right? Is being able to recognize when you're not right. Yeah. Which in couples therapy is hard. Okay, that, my husband and I actually had a session last night, and it was good. He was kind of talking about how he didn't feel heard, and
you're blah, blah, blah.
Yes. No, well, in my head, I was what does he mean?
Yeah, I'm a therapist. I hear everything.
You know, and that initial, like I said, whether it's like anger or defensiveness, whatever that initial reaction is, that's not authentic. I feel like our initial reaction is not the authentic reaction, right? You have to dig deeper.
It's a little kid reaction.
Totally. You have to dig deeper and figure out, okay, where did that come from? What did that mean? Being authentic, I think part of that is being able to admit
out loud
when you're wrong.
Yeah, saying, hey, this is really freaking me out, and I really have no frame of reference as to why it's freaking me out. I just know that my heart is racing, my face is getting hot, my hands are getting sweaty. I'm afraid, I'm anxious, I'm annoyed, I'm irritated. Because for me, if somebody accused me of not listening, my therapist intellectualization, the fan, like, it's like, you don't know, this is dangerous for me, I'm a good listener, I'm a therapist, and then it's kind of attacking that piece of me that feels less than or imperfect.
Sure.
And be able to show up like that and be like, whoa, dude, this is definitely, and I hate this word, triggering for me, because wow, this is setting off a whole bunch of alarms in my body.
Yeah. I think stepping back too, because when you said, if somebody said that to me, right, I have to be in this frame of reference of nobody's doing anything to me.
Yes.
Where what I'm taking from the world is just kind of taking in, and whether somebody's capable of being vulnerable and authentic or not. I mean, I think that's depending on the day and time and what's going on in the season of our life, that's difficult, I think, for everybody. It's not like there's this epiphany and you're all of a sudden this authentic person and here you are. I think it ebbs and flows.
Usually it's on your deathbed. That's my interpretation, right? Is like most people, and this is Kubler-Ross's research, 5 stages of grief, that everybody is lying in their bed kind of recognizing where they, like, the regrets of their life. And a huge regret for a lot of people is I didn't say the things I wanted to say at the time that I should have said them. And that, I think, that rings the bell of authenticity. Like, listen, I didn't tell my partner that, I wanted to be touched more. I wanted to be loved more. I wanted to be, supported. I wanted to spend more time. I didn't tell my children that I was proud of them because I was so aggressive in trying to help them set their goals. And I was that tough love parent. So there's that, and that regret of not being, I think it's soft, not being soft enough in your lifetime, where you kind of, instead of being not soft, you become hard and prickly, and nobody wants to be around the porcupine,
Sure. And I wonder if that's like, and when we're talking about authenticity, if that's those defense mechanisms and all that, like, it's so hard. And I know they talk about like ego syntonic and dystonic and stuff in psychology. It's so hard to decipher sometimes when you're being ridiculous. Yeah. Yes. Well, I think stepping back, and like recently I've been like meditating a lot on stuff, not where I'm sitting there and like it's silent. I mean, meditating on an actual like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Yeah. Meditating on something and trying to figure it out. But I think that part of, and a lot of people are talking about authenticity now and what that means. What that even means. Yeah. And I think it's that self-love buzzword crap where it's like, it muddies the water of what actual authenticity, what's valuable about authenticity is that there's only fear in the beginning. Right? So for me, this is scary. This whole thing sitting here and kind of expressing myself and being, public is scary. Yeah. But the feedback I'm getting from people who love me and who value me is like, listen, this is so good. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. Because I'm not good at receiving compliments, but I'm also not good at seeing how people see me. Right? Sure. And that's the authentic piece. Like, I'm actively engaged in becoming curious about how other people interpret me in the same way that I'm so curious about how people interpret themselves, I think that's a really good piece of authenticity, listening to how people interpret you. Yeah, right? Because obviously when we're studying, we do like videos. When we're studying to become therapists, awful. It's so interesting to record yourself and watch your facial expressions and all that. And actually this is helpful because I think we're learning more about what we look like or what we don't look like. What I don't want to do to people. Yeah. I don't like the fact that, full disclosure, my mother has ADHD. She had ADHD for most of my childhood. And in the way it manifested for her was she was unable to finish a sentence because she was stuttering and she had to start the sentence over and over again. So oftentimes when people are struggling to complete a sentence, I finish it for them.
and it comes off as interrupting. But it's just the way I was trained as a child. Like, if your mom can't complete a sentence and you're in a place for your caregiver, like, you kind of want to move it along, because it's like, hey, this is what she means. I see it now. So, and then I hear myself kind of pushing up against somebody's, like, nuzzling against their sentence in order to carry it somewhere. And it's like, yo, like, that's disrespectful to somebody's process, and you got to kind of scale it back. And that's hard, but it's super important, and oh my gosh.
Especially if it's learned. I think another big piece of being authentic is being curious about other people's experiences. I can't assume. Yeah. Right. Especially as a 35-year-old white woman. I can't assume, a straight white woman. I can't assume that I know what somebody who's exploring their sexual identity, or who's exploring different parts of their career. I can't assume that I know what they're going through. And I think that's the most powerful piece too, is just being curious about people.
It's like that ring toss thing in session where somebody's kind of like giving you limited information, and you're like, does it mean this? And you're kind of like throwing it like, no. Okay, well, does it mean this? Instead of being like, this means this, and you have this, and I'm diagnosing you with this, and this is important because I'm the expert. But I've always said to my clients, you're the expert. You tell me what you need. Your life, dude. I could sit here on a couch and tell you what to do all day, but that doesn't mean you do anything with the information, or that I have any investment in your outcome at all.
Sure. Yeah. There was a TED Talk that talked about authenticity, and she was talking about the Greek meaning of it and all that, but she had mentioned something about how authenticity means using your hands. And it made me think of, when I run groups, how sometimes I'll sit on the floor or I'll walk around. And I'm big on like getting in the trenches with people and when they're struggling. And so it's interesting to look back and think, oh, okay, I found my authentic self kind of as a therapist. And as I saw, the parallel, as you watch your process and what that means. And I wonder if it's similar for when you have kids and just in different arenas, you watching yourself unfold.
So the authenticity piece for me is to really explore how my parents treated my mom or my brother and myself very differently, and we became very different people because of it. And this is a work in progress again, so.
That piece with like men's roles and women's roles in society and what it means to be, authentic. I actually loved, so I got to go see Booksmart this weekend.
Oh, how was it? You loved it? Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it.
You know what I loved about it? It was, she just did a great job. Olivia Wilde did it. And everybody who worked on the film did phenomenal.
She's the redhead from, what's it called? Jurassic Park?
She was from the OC. No, she was in the OC. She was like I think she was gay in the OC. She was like the first, what felt like, I guess, I shouldn't say it was the first, but what felt like in that sort of arena, it was like shocking.
Oh, she's gay. Oh my God, it's so new.
It's not like on Saved by the Bell, like Jessica Spano or anybody was gay. Like, so, I feel like, but that, so one of the main characters was gay, and it was, and if that's just the word I'm using, was lesbian, whatever word, but that's kind of the preference word that I'm using right now. It was just, it was beautiful. It was, have you seen Can't Hardly Wait? So that was like the last day of high school.
I'm looking for like Toy Story 4 at this point. Like, that's what my genre is. I'm like, ooh, Shrek, When
did Can't Hardly Wait come out? It came out in the 90s. It was like that, it's our last day. It was like the Superbad meets the end of school. And so it was these two girls who had just worked really hard. The first part was so interesting because she went to this girl who was valedictorian. She'd gotten into Yale and she had worked so hard, but she went around asking other people where they got in and learned that even the B students or the students who got in for sports had gotten into Stanford and Harvard and all that stuff. So she was like, we're gonna make this night memorable. And I thought one of the most beautiful parts of the film was of the two girls who were the main characters. One of them was gay. And so you see love scenes and you see, and I just thought the whole thing was great. And they just did so good. It was good. It was positive. It was, it was authentic. It was extremely authentic. Playful. She didn't try to change it for the norm, whatever the norm is. So I thought it was really good.
That's awesome. Yeah. It kind of normalizes things that people are trying to demonize.
Yes.
Which again is authenticity, to normalize what's demonized. Like, hey, listen, like the new information that now gender dysphoria is no longer a mental illness. I mean, newsflash, duh, right? Like, oh my gosh, these people who are suffering are not mentally ill. Oh my gosh, what a shocker. That's so sad that it has to be like on CNN. Listen, transgender people are not mentally ill. It's like, for those of us who are therapists who have experienced this influx of conversion therapy. I don't even like to use the word therapy attached to that conversion bullshit. Where I have had
that's still legal in like 30 something states, which
states I will never ever visit.
Is ridiculous.
Unless I can visit with my middle finger detached from my body. But think about it. I mean, the DSM-4 or something, homosexuality was a mental disorder. And so we got rid of that as a school of people who are like, yeah, duh. And now transgender people are not necessarily diagnosable by a mental health clinician, which for somebody who sat with transgender clients and sat with gay clients, it's just like, duh.
Yeah.
Because for me, when somebody's sitting on the couch and they're not coming to therapy because they're afraid of their gender, they're coming to therapy because of the way the world perceives them, and they're not allowed to be what they're meant to be. So it's not a mental illness necessarily, it's society's stigma and all that, kind of the same normalizing what's demonized. And I would not choose a life where I'm consistently attacked and suffering in order to please somebody. I just don't. Yeah. I don't know of anybody who wants to do that. I mean,
sure.
I can't think of anybody who's like, today I'm going to be something that's upsetting to everyone.
Yeah.
You know?
To intentionally upset everyone.
Right? For attention. Like, I'm sorry. I mean, maybe, I'm sure there's a skewed, like the outliers, or yes, this is happening. But for the most part, that is not a life that people are like, this is going to be awesome.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
It's the Joan of Arc thing. Like, this is just who I'm meant to be. I can't fight it anymore. Please help me. Please help me tell my family who I am, which is such an honor as a therapist.
Yeah.
Like, this is the good work. Let's do this. This is awesome.
We get to peel back all that stuff, right? We get to, and that's probably, we get to see authentic people, because you can come in, and again, obviously we're always preaching about therapy, but that's the great thing about it, is you can just go and unravel and be whoever you need to be as you're finding that authentic self, and those pieces don't leave the room. Yeah. Do you feel like your authentic self took time to develop? I mean, we talked about that. It took time to develop, because I think about, because we do have all sorts of people, right, watching the video, and I think of, like, what would I tell my teenage self about authenticity? Like, what would you tell your teenage self about authenticity? Like, what would that mean?
Being authentic.
Oops, sorry.
That's the phone ringing. Sorry, guys. I have to say that the most intense free fall of authenticity is recovery. And the only reason I started to celebrate the weird eccentricities and the strangeness of me was being able to sober up and be surrounded by people who had failed many times. And we're sitting in, for those of you who don't know, I've been in AA forever, but we're sitting in a room cracking up about how stupid they were. And I was built in a family where you never show weakness. Your grammar is impeccable. It is so shameful if you are, if you show up and, your curtains aren't ironed. Like, what would Jesus do if they came to your house and your curtains were wrinkly? Oh my gosh. So I was raised in that, where there was no music when we ate. Like, it was just quiet, and there was prayer. And then when I was kind of swirling out of control, because clearly that wasn't my life path, I met all these people in AA, and I was like, where have you fuckers been? I mean, excuse my French, but it's just like, oh, this is what I've needed. This is what I've needed, people to tell me that instead of lying about your mistakes, just lean into them. Sure. Oops, what'd you learn? What'd you learn? Like, instead of, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? What is this pushing me towards? How is this pulling me towards my greater purpose, And that to me was liberating. But still, watching people really struggle with the authenticity piece is really beautiful. My teenage self
Sure.
was a shit show. I couldn't even talk to her. Like, I couldn't be like, hey, yo, Elle, you're fine. You're going to be okay. Get on the right meds. It's all going to change for you, you know?
My teenage self. That sense too, though, because you said like being involved in AA or in the recovery community. I think part of being able to find whatever it means to be authentic, I think, is having a great community. A community that,
yes,
you know, I mean, I think a community that's supportive, a community that's non-judgmental.
Yes,
I think, yeah. All right, guys, that wraps up our 4th episode. So we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.